You've been in a parking lot or at a rest stop and heard it. A truck sitting completely still, its engine off, the driver nowhere in sight, and yet something on it is still running. A low, constant diesel, coming not from the cab, but from the front of the trailer. And if you noticed at all, you probably figured a motor was left on by mistake, or something was broken. Here's the thing. Nothing is wrong, and it's not the truck's engine. That trailer has a second engine, a whole separate diesel motor of its own, bolted to the front wall of the trailer, and it is supposed to run exactly like that, sometimes for days on end, even when the truck is parked, switched off, and abandoned in the lot with nobody around. Because that little engine has one job that is never, ever allowed to stop: keeping an invisible thing called the cold chain from breaking. By the end of this, you'll understand why almost everything cold in your kitchen would be impossible without that engine, why it can't just borrow power from the truck, and why the people who operate these machines will tell you flatly that it isn't there to make anything cold at all. So let's get into it. What is that second engine actually running? Why can't it just use the truck's engine, or shut off when the truck is parked? Why does it need its own separate fuel tank, filled with a strange red-colored diesel that's illegal to put in the truck? What exactly is the cold chain, and why would breaking it for even a single hour destroy an entire load? And why do the people who run these things insist the machine isn't there to make food cold? Here's what everyone gets wrong. We assume a refrigerated trailer is basically a giant fridge or a big air conditioner, a machine that makes cold and blows it onto the food. It isn't, and the people who operate them will tell you so bluntly. It is not designed to cool anything down. And here's the real idea, the one that unlocks the whole thing. You cannot actually make cold. Cold is simply the absence of heat, so all that any refrigerator ever really does, whether it's the one in your kitchen or a 40-foot trailer, is remove heat, pumping it from the inside to the outside, which means the cargo has to already be cold the moment it's loaded, chilled or frozen back at the farm or the plant. The trailer's job is not to cool it. Its job is to hold that temperature perfectly for 2,000 miles by constantly pumping out the small amount of heat that leaks in through the walls, plus the heat the food itself gives off. That trailer is a refrigerated box called a reefer in the industry, and it is one link in the cold chain, the unbroken line of cold that has to stretch all the way from the field to your fridge. So why the second engine? The entire point of the cold chain is that it can never break. Not for 2,000 miles, not while the truck sits at a loading dock for 6 hours, not while the driver sleeps through the night, not during a mandatory rest break. If the trailer relied on the truck's engine, the cargo would start warming the instant the truck shut off. And it can't run off the truck's battery either. That would go flat in a couple of hours. So the refrigeration unit, that box on the nose of the trailer, has its own small diesel engine and its own separate tank of fuel, roughly 50 gallons of it, so it can run completely on its own, around the clock, whether the truck is rolling down the highway, parked at a dock, or unhooked and gone entirely. That fuel is often a red-dyed, untaxed diesel that's cheaper to buy but illegal to burn in the truck's main engine, which is why a reefer truck quietly carries two entirely separate fuel systems. And how it actually removes the heat is the same closed loop your kitchen fridge uses, just scaled way up. That little engine drives a compressor, which squeezes a refrigerant gas until it's hot. Coils on the outside, working like a radiator, dump that heat out into the air. Then the refrigerant is allowed to expand, which makes it turn bitterly cold, and it flows through another set of coils inside the trailer, where it soaks up the heat from within. Then the whole cycle repeats, over and over, endlessly pumping heat out of the box. But here's a detail almost nobody thinks about. It is not enough to simply blow cold air into the front of a 40-foot trailer, because the far end would just stay warm. So the reefer forces the air along a chute in the ceiling all the way to the back, and the floor itself is shaped with deep ridges, a T-shaped floor, so the cold air can flow underneath the pallets and wrap around every single box, even the ones crushed at the very bottom of the stack. It's engineered so that not one box is ever left sitting in a warm pocket. And strangely, this cooling machine also has to be able to heat. In the dead of winter, hauling produce over a mountain pass, the danger isn't the food getting too warm, it's the food freezing solid. So the very same unit will run in reverse and gently warm the trailer, holding a load of lettuce or bananas at exactly the right temperature. It doesn't keep things cold, really. It keeps things exact, anywhere from 20 degrees below zero to well above room temperature, no matter what the weather is doing outside. And here's the wildest part of all. Fresh fruit and vegetables are still alive after they've been picked. They're still breathing, and that breathing gives off heat. So for fresh produce, the reefer runs continuously, constantly hauling away the warmth the food itself is generating, holding a truckload of living, breathing cargo in a kind of suspended animation the entire way to the store. So how did we ever manage to move food across a whole country before any of this existed? For most of human history, the honest answer is that we couldn't. Moving perishable food any real distance meant packing it in ice and salt and racing the clock, and it failed constantly, spoiling loads, sickening people, and limiting what anyone could eat to whatever happened to grow nearby, and only when it was in season. The breakthrough came from an American inventor named Frederick McKinley Jones, a self-taught engineering genius who never even finished grade school. Jones designed the first practical mechanical refrigeration unit for trucks back in the 1930s and co-founded the company that became Thermo King, still one of the two giants that build these units today. Before Jones, a fresh orange in a northern winter was a rare luxury. After him, refrigerated trucks and rail cars could carry fresh food anywhere year-round, and it quietly rewired how an entire country eats. That drone you hear coming off a trailer in a parking lot is the direct descendant of his invention, still doing the same nearly impossible job. And it has grown into something enormous. Today, there are more than 4 million refrigerated vehicles on the roads of the world, and the temperature inside them is not just good practice, it is the law, with federal food safety rules requiring carriers to hold, and even to prove, the exact temperature of your food for the entire trip. Because once you understand it, you realize this invisible chain is touching almost everything you buy. Nearly everything cold in your kitchen rode inside one of these. The strawberries in January, the gallon of milk, the frozen pizza, the bag of shrimp, all of it held at a precise temperature by a small diesel engine humming away on the nose of a trailer for 1,000 miles or more. And it is not just food. The vaccine you got, insulin, blood samples, entire pharmacies full of temperature-sensitive medicine ride the exact same cold chain, and a broken link there costs lives, not just lettuce. That trailer sitting alone in a lot with its engine running and no truck attached, the very one we started with, is the cold chain holding steady, refusing to break, waiting hours for the next tractor to come and hook on so the cargo can keep moving. And it is the same truck this whole channel keeps returning to. That refrigeration unit adds a couple of thousand pounds, so the driver has to watch the weight on every axle at the scale, exactly like we covered. The trailer hooks to the tractor on the very same greased pin and plate. And when it is parked overnight, its constant diesel drone is loud enough that some towns actually restrict reefer noise, the same way they ban that machine gun engine brake sound. That annoying hum in the parking lot is the sound of the cold chain refusing to break. But keeping that chain unbroken is brutally expensive. A refrigerated trailer costs tens of thousands of dollars more than a plain one. The refrigeration unit needs its own specialized mechanics and constant maintenance. And it burns through its own tank of fuel every single day, even while sitting perfectly still. And the stakes are unforgiving. If that unit fails, or a driver sets the wrong temperature, or leaves the doors open too long at a dock, the entire load can be ruined in a matter of hours, and a single trailer of spoiled meat or thawed medicine can mean a 5-figure loss in cargo that has to be destroyed. The cold chain simply has no tolerance for a weak link, which is exactly why so much of the technology now is aimed not at making things colder, but at making absolutely sure the chain never, ever stops. The old solution was that diesel engine running non-stop, loud and thirsty. The new one is smarter and much quieter. Many reefers now plug straight into electric power the moment they reach a dock, shutting the diesel off entirely and running on the grid to save fuel and kill the noise. Fully electric, battery-powered units are beginning to appear, silent and clean, though they still can't run nearly as long. And every modern unit is now wired with sensors that beam the trailer's exact temperature to a phone or an office in real time. So if a link in the chain starts to slip anywhere on the highway, someone knows about it instantly, long before the cargo is lost. The century-old drone is slowly going silent, but the chain it protects is only getting tighter. So the next time you're standing in a parking lot and you hear that low diesel hum coming off a trailer with no truck attached, you'll understand exactly what it is. That second engine isn't a mistake, and it was never trying to make anything cold. It's a machine quietly pumping heat out of an insulated box, holding a load at the precise temperature it was loaded at. And it cannot stop, because the moment it does, the cold chain breaks, and that invisible line of cold running all the way from a farm to your kitchen finally snaps. You're not hearing an engine somebody forgot to switch off. You're hearing the entire reason there's fresh food in your refrigerator at all. And on other trucks, you'll spot a set of colored, diamond-shaped signs bolted to the side, stamped with strange numbers. Learning to read them could one day save your life, because they're a hidden code, telling emergency crews exactly what's sealed inside that trailer and precisely how badly it could hurt them.